man. We are back for another edition of the Leo G Show. It is 2023. That's what's up, man. Leo G Show 2023, man. Had to come back and do it the earliest we've ever done it. So we're gonna ride through this, man. We got a lot to talk about here tonight, man, because it's a special night. We're gonna get into that in just a minute. So hopefully we got people that's following us on YouTube live, and also you can check us out live on the Leo G page on Facebook. Yes, right. Leo G did figure it out. Streaming live on Facebook. This was a pop-up show. We didn't really put too much out there, but we'll go ahead and for everybody that's gonna miss us, because like I said, we are doing this pretty early in the day. It's pretty early. So without further ado, we are gonna hopefully get on in just a second, but I do got my partner out there to the east. What's up, my man Derek Cole?
What's up, Leo G? Yes, sir. We are live in 2023, and we do have a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about, man. 2023, we are blessed. I am so happy that we are able to continue to do this show, because talking about sports is something that we love and we're passionate about. Shout out to everybody, man, that's doing what we're passionate about, man. A lot of shows. I mean, a lot of podcasts on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere out there, man. Fans talking about the sports that they love, the teams that they love, and we're gonna talk about the teams that we love today. So pretty early, man. I know you just had a light lunch. I think that was the light lunch, was it, or was that early supper for you? Which one was
it? That was a mid-afternoon snack, dog.
Mid-afternoon snack. Okay, that's a mid-afternoon snack. That's what it was. Okay. That mid-afternoon snack. So then you'll have an early supper here in just a minute, and then you'll fire it up for the national championship here in just a second, right?
Yes, sir. But it'll probably be a late dinner during the national championship game.
Late dinner during the national. I'm gonna go for. Yes. I'm gonna opt for the. Hey, I'm gonna do it like they do over at them facilities and do the early supper. So that way, man, when the game fires up, I got a couple other things to do. Meeting. So, as soon as that meeting is over, we got to go. We got to fire this thing up. So, like I alluded to earlier, we got the championship today. We're recording on the day of the national championship, Georgia versus TCU out in Los Angeles. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be big. We'll just a minute and talk about it, man. Derek, I know it's pretty early, but did you start, because this is the national championship day? Did you start already, or are you still waiting?
Agua.
Agua. Hey, you can't go wrong with the H2O. You can't go wrong with H2O.
It's called hydrating.
Yeah, you got to
before the festivities.
You got to definitely do that. As I slide away, I got some water, man. We're gonna do our thing. As you gulp it down right in my ear, it's all good.
Yes,
because it's gonna be a marathon, not a sprint, and hopefully it's gonna be a big time celebration, man. It's gonna be a lot of late people or a lot of call outs tomorrow, either one way or another. Whether you're one fan or a Bulldogs fan, because we hopefully them other fans, they'll be able to get on. Either they're gonna sick out them, because they might be in their feelings a little bit after this thing go the way it's supposed to go, right?
Hey, they may be a little, like you said, in their feelings about the outcome of this game, that we hoping that we get this repeat back-to-back national championships. It's hard to repeat, son. It's hard to repeat. I think the last repeat, man, was them folks
Alabama.
across the line.
Oh, definitely, man. Something big here for the state of Georgia to go back to back. Something big here in college football with the climate of college football, Derek. If you want to talk about it a little bit before we actually get into the game tonight, man. College football, the landscape of college football has changed a lot since we've known it. We're the old heads. You know what I'm saying? We've been watching college football for quite some time. Going back,
you finally admitted that you wanted the old head.
I mean, I'm an old head, but I ain't as old head as you. You know what I'm saying? I don't go back to the leather helmet days, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, we do what we do. But check it out, man. We go back college football, man. I think, we remember the days of, the Big 12 was the Big 12. It was like the Big 8 or something like that out there. You know what I'm saying? It was the Pac-10. It wasn't the Pac-12. It was a conference that didn't have, damn near 14 teams at this point.
Yeah.
Almost super conferences, man. So, Miami was in the Big East. I mean, it's just a lot of changes, man, over the years and over the course of time. Of course, like with anything, man, time brings on a change. So college football and the landscape of it now, Derrico, we're moving into the college football playoffs, which is actually going to be expanding, I think, next year. Right now, we had 4 teams this year, 2 teams that made it out of 10. I said that correctly, the little 10. A SEC team, which is Georgia, which I think that, a SEC team will probably represent that conference from now to here on out, with the 2 additions that we just got here coming up pretty soon. And we had a team, a sleeper team that came out of the Big 12, TCU. Looking at the college football playoffs over the last couple of years and looking at it now, how do you feel about where we're moving football? Because I mean, it's been kind of, there's been some parity here, and it's been a little diverse field now. Like I said, with the TCU, Ohio State, and Michigan both out of the Big Ten, playing for the college football playoffs. What have you seen moving forward, man?
I'm going to absolutely. It's going to be 12 teams in the playoffs. I mean, it's going to give a different feel for how the Division One setup has been all these years, and hopefully they'll get rid of some of them bowls at the same time, because I just think it's way past time that we had a playoff in the Division One. I mean, like we said before, we're going to beat this dead horse. Every other division of sports has playoffs. So why it took so long for Division One, we already know it's about the money. But as far as the landscape with the NILs, with the transfer portal, I think it's just going to even out these squads. It's not going to be the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Texas and the Oklahomas and the Michigans and the Ohio States of the world. You're going to have little TCUs coming up because they got players that can play. And you got coaches that can coach. So that's what I'm most excited about. And I'm expecting one of the big dogs to get knocked off in the first year of the playoff in the first round.
Absolutely, man. The parity is there, man. I mean, we're starting to see it. It used to be college football. You had, the big dogs every year. You knew they were going to be with the active transfer portal. Now, it was only one team, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that didn't have any players into the transfer. Do you remember what squad that was, Derrico?
No, actually, I don't.
I'm sorry. I think it may have been like, did Georgia have a couple of guys, or can you remember?
Yeah, Georgia had a couple of guys that went in the portal. I think somebody went and then came back out of it.
Okay.
I just don't have the names in front of me.
I know for a fact Georgia had the fewest, if I want to say, that entered the transfer portal out of all guys here. But you had a lot of guys into the transfer portal and go to different places. There's a squad, Big 12, that had a lot of guys get picked up out of the transfer portal or want to be picked out of the transfer portal in Colorado, as we talked about last time, prime time, go to over to Colorado. Yes, sir. So it's a lot happening in college football. We're trying to get my man Banks in here. Hopefully we'll get him in here in just a second. Hopefully he'll keep trying, and we'll get him in here to join the conversation in just a second. So we're going to get into the national championship because it is National Championship Day. Georgia versus TCU. How did we get here? Yes, the Georgia Bulls national championship again, to defend it back-to-back, which is very hard to do, like you just said, alluding to Derrico. And they're going to be playing the TCU. We'll talk about how the TCU Horned Frogs got hit to this point, man. TCU, very, very, I should say, they surprised a few people. They got to their championship game against Kansas State. They were actually beaten by Kansas State in their championship game, but they still end up getting a bid to the college football playoffs. First and foremost, before we get into actually a little bit of the specifics as to how they got here tonight, how do you feel about this TCU squad, and how do you feel about them actually getting into? Because I know it's a lot, because teams only 4. There was a little bit of a conversation as to who should get there, and they end up losing their conference title game, but they still made it. Do you feel like they were deserving college football playoffs?
I mean, we can't change the rules because of TCU. I mean, we done benefited from it. Alabama done benefited from it. Ohio State done benefited from it. So we can't change the rules and say just because it's little TCU that just because they lost their conference championship game that they're not worthy of being in the dance. So I absolutely agree that they should be here, and they've proven that they should be here because guess what? They're playing tonight. If they didn't deserve it, they had a loss against Michigan, and that would have been the end of the game. But no, they are playing Georgia for the national championship tonight.
The committee saw it fair that they actually made it, went undefeated until they played Kansas State in the championship game. Obviously, they got here Michigan, who was the number 2 seed, if I'm not mistaken. They were the number 2 seed. 2 and 3 went at it. Michigan against TCU, and they upset. Well, I guess I don't know. I guess you can call it upset. They were number 3 facing number 2, the bigger squad, the bigger opponent, which was Michigan. A lot of people had already called, at least one Big Ten team in the national championship, and that just didn't happen, man. TCU led the game the whole entire time in the Fiesta Bowl against Michigan, and they shocked me. They really did shock me. And get into this point, and as we continue to talk about the national championship game tonight, I see we are joined by our co-host, my man Banks. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Phil? How you feeling?
Hey, man, I'm feeling good, man. I know you're a little tired, you know what I'm saying? We'll talk about, you getting up and joining us in just a second, man, but we are talking national championship right now about how the TCU Horned Frogs got here. So, Derek, I'm going to give it back to you. They were able to beat Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl to get here tonight. I surprised a few people by actually dominating against Michigan, man. Was this an issue? Because I feel like TCU is a good squad. When I break it down and I went back and I looked at the games that they played, I looked at their quarterback, who was a Heisman candidate, who actually went to New York, if I'm not mistaken. Well-coached team, and they have some athletes on this team. They really, really do. Was this a case of, because there's a fence, I guess, and a couple of people that I've talked to, you have some people that were like Michigan overlooked TCU, or you have some TCU was that team, and they were a force to be reckoned with, man. Where do you fall on that side of the fence? Was this that was, like you said, deserving of being here and a high competitor, or did Michigan overlook them? What do you on that fence?
Yeah, I don't think it was a matter of being overlooked by Michigan. I just think TCU came out with that chip on their shoulder if they lost that game to Kansas State, and everybody was talking about they don't deserve to be in the playoffs because they lost their championship game. So I think they just came out with a huge chip on their shoulder and just wanted to knock the Goliath Michigan off the block. And they did it convincingly. It wasn't like it was a squeaker. It wasn't like, hey, they needed the ref help. It wasn't like they needed a turnover help. It was the fact they just wanted to just put their hands on Michigan thoroughly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like TCU showed who they were. And like you said, teams show up. They have to be resilient. You get an opportunity to say, hey, we got here. Let's do this. Because like you said, a lot of people counted them out and said, okay, they lost their conference here, because there were a few people, I guess a lot of people across the border to the west of us that said, our team with 2 losses this year, which I thought was insane. I'm like, really? No. I said, let's give these people that have fought all year. Yeah, they took it. You took 2 L's. You didn't make it to your conference. And yes, I'm talking about Bama fans. So I hope y'all ain't in y'all feelings, because I'm about to talk about y'all for a minute before I pass this over to Banks. Listen, you did not make your conference championship, okay? And you took 2 L's. I don't know why you even thought your name is Bama. You thought you deserved to get in there because your coach is Saban. You thought you deserved to get in there. No, absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? Because if the shoe was on the, you'd be telling me, well, maybe next time you need to win your conference championship. You didn't even make it. The LSU Tigers made it out of the West this year. You did. You know what I'm saying? Y'all was all on TV politicking and all on social media after it was all said and done, talking about how y'all were better than, this team and that team and how y'all should be there. Well, guess what? Get to your conference championship like y'all been telling everybody else, and win the conference championship, and then you get your spot in the playoffs. And it'll be a lot of open seats coming up here. So you won't is going over here to Banks. Banks, just to bring you on a little bit, man. We've been talking about TCU and how they got to this point. TCU, obviously, they lost. I mean, not Pac-12, excuse me, their Big 12 championship game to Kansas State, but they were still allotted a slot in the college football playoffs, and they beat convincingly. Where are you with TCU? Are you on the fence that this is a contender team, or this was a team that was overlooked by Michigan? How do you feel about them going into tonight's game against Georgia?
Well, they are a. I've watched some of their games this year. Even they played Kansas State. Kansas State, played them straight up, lost that game, and then TCU played them again once in their conference champion. Kansas State. Kansas is a different style of football that I think a lot of folks in the SEC. They play a really, really heads up kind of a gritty style of play. If you watch Texas, they play how Texas played Alabama and should have won that game, by the way. The whole conference been playing the same exact way. And going into that Michigan game, they took it to Michigan. Didn't do themselves any favors by saying, before the game started, who TCU, what conference they played in. So you automatically bulletin board material, which was not smart. And Michigan, you know what? We deserve to be on the field with you. And I don't think they're not going to follow that, feeding into that bulletin board material war, whatever.
Hey, man, I'm glad you said that, man, because we'll talk about Georgia here in just a second to the national championship tonight in LA. But I agree with both of you guys wholeheartedly, man. This is a TCU team that is very, very talented, very, very well coached, and they deserve to be here. So I am on the fence of that. No, Michigan did not overlook these guys. These guys came out, they played ball well all year. They took one L in the conference title game. So they're going to come, they're going to show up tonight at SoFi against their opponent. Go ahead, Derek Cole.
So we got a comment on Facebook from Patrick Abrams. He wants to know outside of Stetson Bennett, who do y'all think have a big time game for UGL offense tonight?
Man, I think so. Getting into as we go into talking about Georgia and how they got there, man, we're gonna have to see a collective out of Georgia, man. I mean, I know we talk about the first person that comes to mind, of course, obviously is Brock Bowers, right? Tight end who's been a game changer for the University of Georgia. I want to say the other tight end has been cleared to play. His name escapes me right now. God, what is his
name? Washington,
exactly. And I don't know what kind of a factor he's going to be tonight. If he is going to suit up and play, obviously he will. It's the national championship. But I think, to get the ball into your playmakers' hands, Brock Bowers, he has to be effective tonight. And also, man, it's been by committee all year. The Georgia run game is going to have to come in, and the line is going to have to impose their will. High-powered TCU offense that can score. Let's be real about this, right? TCU can score, man. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you, Georgia in the third, because I'm going to talk about Georgia here in just a second. But to answer your question, Pat, I think we're going to have Brock Bowers step up. We're going to have this Georgia run game step up, be physical, and lay on this TCU defense and try to just wear them down out of attrition, man. You got to get the run game, get Brock Bowers, who has been your most productive offensive playmaker this whole entire season. Banks, to add on to that, and then I'm going to come back to you, Derek. Banks, who do you feel like needs to be more productive tonight?
Well, I'm going to go outside of Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is such an easy answer. I think on him like at Ohio State did. Me and Pat talked about this a while ago, and it's Kenny McIntosh. He has to have a game. Got to have your running game, and I think the way he's been running that ball, I think that will be very much needed for a game like control the game, control the time of possession. Stars up front, guys. Not just between Kenny McIntosh. That offensive line got to beat TCU's defensive line all night. And, that's the only way game is going to be decided is on that line.
You have to be physical, Banks. I'm glad you said that. Georgia. So if there is any tale of the tape that you want to give to Georgia at this point, I think that Georgia, in my opinion, take that for what it's worth, is the most physical team. Right? You look at what you see out of Georgia, and you use that to your advantage. Like you said, Banks, with Kenny McIntosh, impose your will. Try to do that. I don't think Michigan, well, I don't think they're built like Georgia, but I don't think Michigan got into that with TCU. They tried to finesse, and they got into a game that they knew they couldn't win, and they weren't going to outscore TCU. Georgia have to keep the game in their range and do what they do. And we'll talk about how they got here in just a minute. I'm gonna let you piggyback there more about how Georgia got to the national championship.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree wholeheartedly with Banks on this one. When he put the question out there, I immediately said Milton. And why I said Milton, it got to start with the running game. It got to start with the running game. And Milton is from California too, so you're gonna want to do good out there. So I'm gonna say Milton, and I'm gonna tag along with the running game as a whole because that's what it's been. It's been a committee of running. So it has to start with the run game. Take the air out of the football. The more you limit TCU on the football field offensively, the better chance you're gonna have to operate and keep the score to a state where you don't have to put the ball in Mr. Bennett's hand to win.
That's what I'm saying. Come out and play physical. Even though, and I'll get to it here in just a second, I'm not scared of putting the ball in Mr. Bennett's hand. And we'll talk about that right now. Bulldogs, they get to the national championship in their second season, back-to-back seasons. They are now undefeated going into. I'm so excited. As you can see, all of us are repping Georgia right now, and we're excited about tonight's game this evening. Listen, this was not an easy. I think all of us can agree, man, that going – Kirby said it at the beginning of the season, man. We would not be the hunted. Okay. And we were going to be Georgia. We were going to be who we were. They have strived. And I think that going back to this championship game, everything you could think of that was thrown their way, they had it. You know what I'm saying? They were on the ropes a couple of times this year. They were supposed to be beat by superior opponents in their own division this year. They have prevailed. And I think the icing on the cake was to go into the college football playoffs at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and play an Ohio State team that gave them everything they wanted and then some, and then find a way to win. The Georgia Bulldogs game, this was a game that I felt like Ohio State came out and said, like you said, Derek Cole, wanted to make a statement and say, hey, we want to push and put national championship. They punched Georgia in the mouth. They really did. They gave Georgia all they wanted and then some. And Georgia had to figure out in the game. And they did. They won it. You know what I'm saying? We talk about hook or by crook. We always talk about you got to find a way to win. Georgia find a way. Talked about that guy Stetson Bennett. He didn't have the best game, but when it counted, when the chips were on the table, when it was like, hey, I go out here are your opportunities to do it. Stetson Bennett, the foot joke. People want to joke, talk about, hey, 25-year-olds, whatever the case may be. Can't deny the fact that when it was put in his court to win this game, he went out there and did what he needed to do against Ohio State. So that's how they got that conference championship. They beat LSU conventionally. Obviously, they went into the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl to play Ohio State. And I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me right offhand, but they found a way to win that game. Come back, take the lead, because it was a dominant game by Ohio State, the game, and they found a way to actually win it. Derek Cole, what were you going to say?
So Patrick got another question for us.
Mm-hmm.
What advantages do you all see in favor of TCU in this game?
Okay, good question, Pat. So about Georgia and how they got here, and then we'll talk about TCU's advantages. I said really quickly, we'll take a drink. I mean, I'm drinking for real. You hydrating. Banks is just woken up. He just rolled out of the bed, so it is what it is. So listen, Georgia got here, by fire. This easy. Banks, I'm sorry, Derek, I'm gonna take it over you first. This was a I'm gonna say it. I feel like this was a monumental Georgia because a lot of people thought that this was a flash in the pan Georgia team that got to the national championship, and y'all beat a wounded Alabama in the national championship, and I don't see y'all getting back for another 40 years. I was ridiculed by a lot of people that weren't Georgia fans, talking about how this was a fluke and how Georgia was not going to get back in this position. But we're here now, and I think this team deservedly so belongs in the national championship. Derek, do you agree with me on that?
Yes, I agree with you, good sir. Am I answering that question also? From Patrick?
Yeah. No, we'll answer Patrick's question in just a minute about TCU. I want to talk about Georgia and how they got here, and then we'll talk about TCU's advantages.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Georgia, like you said, it's like, for some reason, it's just like Kirby just got these boys just on another level of thinking and taking ownership of the program. And it just started with, I can just feel Kirby's spirit when I hear some of the comments that he's making during halftime speeches, pregame speeches. And just the fact that Kirby just got these boys in tune to wanting to be elite, be the greatest, be the one that everyone talking about. They don't want Georgia to be underneath the conversation. They want Georgia at the top of the conversation. And I just feel like these guys are just bought in. That's why you see too many people in the transfer portal, too, when we just talked about that earlier. They want to be at Georgia. They want to be here to win. And they know that Kirby has built this program not just for 1 or 2 years, but to sustain a winning pedigree. And I just think that's part of the issue that TCU might run into tonight.
Absolutely, Derek. I wholeheartedly agree with you, man. Banks, I'm gonna pass it over to you here, man, before we talk about the keys of the game for this national title tonight. Georgia is here. They got here, like I said, by hook or by crook. It was not a lot of people didn't think they were gonna be back in this position. There were a lot of, to break it down and just say it for what it was. There were a lot of haters that talked about Georgia and how they got the national championship last year. Oh, man, y'all were lucky. And, oh, man, it's going to be hard. Y'all lost a lot of players to the draft, and y'all can't do it again. And I don't know about this, that, and third. We're here now, Banks. We're here. What do you say to those people that doubted us? And we're back here now in SoFi tonight for another national title game with Kirby Smart and these young men going into this game.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can say is how that couch feel? I mean, there's no need to argue with people like that. I mean, I got people, they Florida State fans, they Miami fans, that fans they are. I mean, it's irrelevant to me because we don't play them. And number two is, why should I argue with you because you're at my team? I digress. It stems from not just, this goes back to the talking heads, the national pundits. When the season, when they played Oregon, they hit, I think it was like 49-3 or something to like that. Let me back up. They didn't even have Georgia number 1 as a preseason. That's first and foremost. I thought that was a very slap. It was a disrespect to that you're the reigning national champion, and we didn't even, because we still had to take a back seat to Alabama. So, and we were ranked number 3, I believe, behind Ohio, and we went on through the season, still didn't move up until Alabama had a bad game, and then that's when we jumped up to number 1. Lo and behold, now mind you, we have not lost a game. Before we played Tennessee and before that college football playoff ranking came out, we fell once again for a Tennessee team that was only in first place for like less than 24 hours. So I think the disrespect is real. I think it's a lot of, Georgia's good, but it's always that. But it's like, what's a but? We are champion. Ever got this much disrespect? I'm talking world, the Clemsons of the world, the Alabamas of the world. When Georgia now it's well, you lost so many players last year. How can you? I'm like, this is not a 1 year team. You know, you got a head coach that came from Alabama who built that defense, and he helped tear it down. If references, we going forward with this man, and we still a shadow to Alabama, and I think that's very unfortunate. It's probably on their way to be a dynasty. I is, you know, don't worry about what everybody's saying. Talking heads, media, haters, just keep watching the show, because it's once that hardware come trickling in, it's nothing else. No one can really.
Absolutely. You got to stay the path, stay the course. Banks, I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. Stay the path, stay the course, man, and let your actions speak louder than your words. You know what I'm saying? Do what you need to do. Like I said, this team is battle tested. This team played some good teams this year. You know, we were on the ropes against Missouri. We were supposed to lose to Tennessee. We weren't supposed to be. Georgia is not supposed to be where they are right now. I mean, I'm just saying, if you listen to all this, I'm just saying, if you listen to all the talking heads, like you just said, you know, they did not put us here. They did not pencil us into this game. Like I said, man, we were supposed to, you know, the talking heads had us losing that game to Tennessee, man. I think that we didn't stand, even in Sanford Stadium in Athens, a lot of people did not have us beating Tennessee for whatever reason, but we proved them wrong. We proved them wrong. You know what I'm saying? We was up against the ropes against Missouri, and we proved them wrong. We were up against the ropes against Ohio State just a couple of weeks ago, and we proved them wrong. We're back here. We're here. We're poised to win another national title because of Kirby Smart and because of the talent that he's brought in, and because of what, like you just said, Banks, everybody buying into up there in Athens, man. So moving forward here, we're going to do the keys of the game tonight as to how each team could win tonight. And to Pat's question, I'm going to go first here, and I'm going to bring it back over to you, Derrico. TCU, how can TCU beat Georgia? There's a couple of different ways I think TCU could beat Georgia. Listen, I'm going to tell you something, guys, and we've all talked about this. There are athletes at TCU, okay? And you got to come out and you got to do what you do best, and you got to find out what you can do. Georgia's secondary did not look good against C.J. Stroud and Ohio State. They were able to throw the ball all over the yard, man. C.J. Stroud had a game, okay? Probably one, if not the best game of his collegiate career against the Bulldogs, right? He had, you know, he was able to roll out. He was able to get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm gonna say that TCU's receivers, they might be on par or maybe even just as good as Ohio State's receivers. They got a guy by the name of Quentin Johnston, man, out there at TCU, man, who's a 6'4", 230-pound stud. You know what I'm saying? They are able to throw the ball all over the yard. And to your point, like you just said, Banks, this is a different brand of football, okay? This is a brand of football that comes from the Big 12, where they like to throw the ball around the yard and score a lot of points. So how can TCU win this game? Is play their brand of football, throw the ball around the yard, make Georgia stop them from scoring. And like I said, you just said, Derrico, the final score from the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl game was what, 40? What was it? 40? What was the score? The final score in the Peach Bowl?
41.
42-41. Ohio State scored 41 points. You don't think TCU looked at that and said, hey, we score points? On average, I don't know how many points TCU scored, but on average, I want to say they scored around that margin. So let's make this a track meet, and let's see if Georgia can run with us. You know, it just so happened that Georgia was able to walk Ohio State down, and they were able to get it and take and win that game. But I think the key to TCU winning tonight is them being able to put points on the board and say, hey, Georgia, come catch us, because they got some athletes. Georgia has, you know, let's be real, some of the best athletes in the country. But like you said, man, it's going to be matchup for matchup tonight. Kelly Ringo against Quentin Johnston tonight. This second, can you get pressure on Dugans, the quarterback for TCU? Can you do that tonight? That's going to be key. So if I'm TCU, I'm trying to go up 17-0 and check Georgia and see if they can climb out of that hole and see where Stetson Bennett and what he can do. Because we all said that Georgia has to be physical and run the ball, right? But it's kind of hard to run the ball when you're down 17 points in the first half. So I'm gonna pass it over to you, Derek Coleman, to give us your key to the game as to how TCU can beat Georgia tonight.
Well, you must have was in my mental notes because you hit probably every point that I had except one, and that is the lack of containment of Huggins. If we can't contain Huggins and we let him break containment on third downs, third and longs, or first downs and longs, it's gonna be a long night. I just don't see how we could get past that when we're gonna depend on the 4-man rush too much, and that's just gonna be a problem for me. And that's what happened last week with Ohio State. I hope they watched the film and saw that. Unfortunately, Kirby sometimes it's gonna take a fifth man to get in there and get to the quarterback, and not stand there and just be what's the word I'm looking for? Be stubborn about 4-man getting to the quarterback. You said a mouthful when you said something about when you said that earlier about the defensive line. The defensive line from Georgia got to play, and if they don't play, it's going to be a problem because that secondary is suspect right now. If it boils down to Huggins throwing the ball 30 times, and we got to depend on Kelly Ringo, I'm going to say Ringo again this weekend, he didn't play that bad, but didn't play up to the level that he's supposed to play as being a projected number 1 first round pick. So I'm depending on that to happen. And again, if we allow TCU just to throw the ball and we don't run the ball, that means, like you said, if they catch that 17-point advantage on Georgia, there could be a long night.
And
But
let's be real, just to piggyback on something too. Opportunistic defense, TCU, opportunistic, man. They were very opportunistic against Michigan, man. If they see some chinks in the armor, combined with their offense scoring, man, jeez.
Yeah, I'm just like TCU. I think they're gonna come out with a different mentality. They probably tired. Banks used this word earlier with Georgia being disrespected. And the thing that I'm scared of the most as far as disrespect for TCU, I don't like that 12 and a half line at all. I think that was kind of disrespectful that they put a 12 and a half line up against TCU in Georgia. So I think that's that motivating bulletin board material that they're not gonna get from Georgia. They got it from the folks in Vegas.
Absolutely. Banks, we're going to take it over to you, man. What are the advantages that TCU has tonight into winning their first national title in their school's history, man? What do they have to do to come out and win the title?
Well, first, let me say this. You just butchered his name, and so did you, Derek Cole. His Huggins. You said Dugans. Stacy, you said Huggins. It's Duggins.
Oh, we just combined it.
Yeah,
I was thinking about wings and beer, and I was thinking about Dugans. I was thinking about Dugans.
That was hilarious to me. But what I said earlier to TCU, it started. I hate to sound like a broken record. They have to than Georgia. They have to be got to overtake Georgia's line of scrimmage. And as we can see of what Georgia has proven over time and time again, that's a hard task to do. It's not impossible, but that's what they got to do. As for Duggins passing the ball over the yard, that for what LSU did, what Ohio State did, I still don't think that TCU can do to duplicate that. Not to say take anything away from them. I think that's not of game. If you watch them play, their style of game is more of a it's a weak RPO kind of thing. Like they this run option every once in a while, and it looks kind of flicked finger on it, but it's real funky looking, and it's an offense I think it can flourish. As for
You said
They
flicked.
That
received
boy
the
said
said
flicked
flicked.
it. Boy,
You said
hey,
flicked
yeah, I like that's an old school term right there, boy.
flicked
Hey
it.
man, if you say that again, we may have to take a drink. But go ahead.
Well, then we'll
But
take another one.
that is a term though. Yeah, that is
I
a
got
term. Yeah.
So what I'm saying, what I get to my point is to do exactly what Ohio State did, exactly what LSU did, for them to even look like it will be an upset. Can they do it? Sure they can. Absolutely can. I can't sit there and they will do it, but I know what Georgia's got to do is, compared to what TCU had going into Michigan, they had 3 weeks to prepare. That all that built up, chip on the shoulder, released right then and there on that game on Michigan. You only had a week to prepare for Georgia, and the tangible part, I could be totally wrong. I think this is not a semifinal game. Okay, this is a national championship. It's a break. This is the big stage. At the end of the day, I'm gonna experience before everything. Experience trump everything, and I feel like Georgia's been on that stage. They know exactly what they prepare for, what to expect. TCU, this is their first rodeo. Maybe it might be too bright for them. I don't know, but we'll see.
But cut you off right there because we're gonna go into predictions before we move on to the next segment of the show. And I'll go first here, guys. Banks, I'm glad you brought that up to say my prediction. This is going to be a night where I feel like Georgia is going to have to rely on like Banks. Their experience, for lack of a better word, their experience in being in these situations. Georgia has been, I use that word, battle tested all the time, but in this season, and even with the player, losing players and gaining players and having Kirby there, man, this team is back and they've seen a lot. They've been through a lot. The Alabama game, the Ohio State game, just everything that they went through. I think that the experience that Georgia has been through, man, these last couple of years on the Kirby Smart is going to ascend them to winning back-to-back national titles. The key to that is going to be Stetson Bennett being poised, leading this offense, and being able to do what he do in order to guide this team to a national championship. Don't get me wrong, man. This is a tall task for the Georgia defense. It's going to come out to play. But I think at the end of the day, like you said, Banks, experience is key. I think Georgia has been here. There isn't a moment too big. There really isn't. When the lights are on, I think it's going to play a factor with TCU. They're going to hang. But like we saw against Ohio State, and Georgia just kept coming. Georgia just kept coming and finding them. That comes from experience and being tested and staying steady. Kirby has them focused mentally. They're strong here. Athletes that they bring into the G, I think that they prevail tonight. I think that Georgia prevails tonight, and I think that this is, like I said, and like you said, Banks, something that we're witnessing with Georgia that can last for quite some time. So I see Georgia tonight. I see Georgia winning. This scoreline is probably going to shock a lot of people, but I see Georgia winning tonight to 24. Georgia back-to-back title. Derek, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Hey, man, I'm tired of you stealing my thunder. Because that's the number I had in my head, 35. Swear that's the number I had in my head. I think it's going to end up like the Alabama game last year, where it was kind of going back and forth, Hail Marys, and then at the end, Georgia just going to pull off. You know what I'm saying? But I still think that 12.5 is pushing it. Is pushing it. I'm going to give them 10 points. I'm going to say 35, 25, or 24. But if it get past 35, that means Georgia had a turnover and ran a turnover back or a fumble back for a touchdown. So if we get over 35, it's going to be because of a defensive score. And I like the mindset, like again, of this team wanting to team in history to go back to back. I know they won't say it, but I know it's important for them to do it. And as y'all alluded to, that experience, that elite thought process is what's going to take them over the hump.
Absolutely. Banks, we can kick it over to you before we move to the next segment, man. How do you feel about tonight? And what are your...
It's funny y'all said 35. My prediction was 34-26. I'm kind of like you, Derek Cole. You keep stealing my... Just shut up and just let you talk for me. It's going to be a back, in my opinion. I think at the end of the game, I think Georgia's going to realize who's the best. I mean, TCU's going to realize who's the... Georgia's going to kick it to another gear. And I think in the beginning, I think both teams going to probably have the jitters. This is the national championship. Down towards the end of the first, and that 12.5 is... the more I think about that line, the more, you know what, unless
that's a Vegas trap.
More, unless Vegas know more. It's like, you know what, this... I'll just keep...
Hey man, we let Vegas
34-26.
Capital. We let Vegas do what they do, man. Derek, make no mistake about it, man. A line is a line. Obviously, I don't know what the over and under is, but Vegas, they put some thought into what we'll see tonight. But I do think TCU is going to show up. I think at the end of the day, the process and what Georgia has built and has started to build there is just going to take them over to the top and put them into an elite level, into another era of where we are in college football, man. So hopefully, fellas, tonight, I know we'll be texting back and forth. We'll get in a group chat, man, and we'll come with another edition of Leo G Show and talk about how this game transpired, and hopefully we'll get another championship out of the University of Georgia. Banks, I look forward to seeing you at the parade this Saturday. I have all the faith. I really do. So
hold on.
You broke up, Banks. You're on mute, man.
I'm just shouting out to Patrick Abrams. He said 42-17. Shout out to you, Pat, man. 42-17. Copy that, sir.
Pat, man, thank you for supporting the show, man. 42-17 for my man Pat Abrams over there, and I look forward to seeing you at the parade here this weekend, man, as we celebrate a second title for the University of Georgia. I'm excited about it. I want to see this, man. I think the state needs to see this, and I'm so happy for Kirby, and I'm so happy for the program up there in Athens.
Shout out to Ken Little joining us too on Facebook.
Shout out to Ken Little, man, for supporting the show, man. Leo G Show doing it big, man. 2023. As we do this, man, as we move on into another segment, man. So really quickly, fellas, if you want to take a drink on that, Derek Cole, I'll give you that. But that was in my head. I had already thought I was going to say that as we segue into the next segment, man. NFL football, man, for our Atlanta Falcons has come to an end. I know this has been a bittersweet season. We knew what this was going to be about when we got into this season. I think that there were some high expectations out of some people. There was some mediocre expectations out of some people. There was some low expectations out of some people. Not calling anybody out on this show, but I just think that that's what happened this season. As you see, I got it. You see it. I see it. Banks, I love how you just switched it up as we segue into the next segment of the show. So talk about the Atlanta Falcons. I'm kind of in my... So I might take the rant and run with it because there are a lot of things that have transpired this morning. There are a lot of things that I want to get off my chest and I want to talk about before we close it. I don't even know if we got enough time today, but we're going to talk about some of them. Before we talk about, in general, a review and a recap of what happened in this season, two things I want to get out first. Damar Hamlin, fellas. I just want to give a shout out, man, to everybody that watches this show, to let everybody know, man, that our prayers are still with Damar Hamlin as he, continues to get better. I'm so glad. Let me tell you guys, man, I am so glad that this young man is doing well. He's breathing now. Neurologically, he's back. it was a scary moment on last Monday night that we saw, man, the Buffalo Bills against the Cincinnati Bengals game, man. I don't know if you all were watching, but we all got the news sometime that night as to what happened up there in Cincinnati. And I'm just very, very happy that this young man has been able to pull through. And not to go too far into the politics of the NFL, but the right decision was made, I think, on Monday night by the two teams and the head coaches, man. Shout out to them by saying, you know what, man, there are things that are bigger than the game. There are things that are bigger than the game, man. And, you know, for them to see what they saw and witness that, man, I think that, you know, they did everybody a favor mentally by saying, you know what, we're not going to come back out here on this field, man. This is about Damar and making sure that he's going to be okay. But just to show you the competitor that Damar Hamlin is, man. Guys, to show you the competitor that Damar Hamlin is. This young man, when he came back into consciousness after having a breathing tube from 100% to 50%, he was able to communicate. This young man wrote on a piece of paper, some of his first words was to who won the game. Absolute competitor. Absolutely lets you know where he was and where his focus was and where his mind was. Ultimate competitor, ultimate team guy. This man literally coded and almost lost his life on the football field. But his last thoughts and moments were, who won the game? It right now, as I speak on it, man, it sends chills down my spine, man, because, you know, this guy was doing something that he loved. He made it to a place in life that a lot of us will never see. His passion for this game and for him to lay it all out on the line, man, is something that right now is really, really catching me. It's doing something to me. I'm going to give it over to you here, Banks. Damar Hamlin, man, prayers and thoughts to him, man. I just, you know, want to give you your thoughts and your takes on Damar, man, as we move forward here with this.
He's Angels was watching over him. To sit there and watch that in real time. I was at work and didn't understand what happened, and then, you know, I saw it all medical, the folks out there on the field and everything, and just something didn't sit right with me. It felt different. It didn't feel like it was a regular injury. I'm happy that he's recovering. It's been something on my mind, everyone I've talked to about this, and to see that he's actually, you know, people community doing FaceTime with his team, and when he wrote Leo, the doctor told, well, you did on the game of life, you want it. And I think that at that time it was like the moment like you said, Leo, he was thinking about competing, and when he woke up, he was thinking about competing. So it's like being in a situation like, I get into that with my personal self, but I know once you're out like that, you don't hear anything in between. So for him, he probably thought that was just one instant that, you know, he was still at the football game. So yeah, I can see how that's very chilling. It raised the hair on the back of your neck. You know, it's like, whoa, you know, he was out. He didn't know that he wasn't here. You know, he was about to play Cincinnati Bengals, and he woke up thinking, who won? You know, no, brother, it's that game hadn't been played. So
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's perspective about how life is. You know, you gotta, you know, something as minute as a football. It's like, damn, life is so big and precious, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that bonds us so close, man. Not even, not even being we're football fans. So anytime we see something like that happen, man, we all kind of come together and say, hey, man, you know what? It's bigger than the game. It's bigger than the sport, man. Like you said, Banks, this is life, man. Derek Cole, just your thoughts on Damar Hamlin, man, as we move forward here and talk about our.
Yeah, I was upstairs helping my grandkids, and I came back downstairs, and I was like, "Why is the TV on like the halftime show when the game just started?" And I started looking at Booger McFarland, his face. It was just like solemn and stoic. And I'm just like, okay, what happened? And I think you had tried to contact me, Leo, and I didn't get your text until afterwards. So I was just like, wow. And being a former athlete, yeah, I was a former athlete. I can relate because even like you say, an experience when I was in high school where I was out there playing, and I absolutely got knocked out and didn't know what was going on until I really came back to my faculties. So to just see that and knowing that that wasn't a regular NFL or football sports related injury, like this is like really, really, really serious. And it just filled my heart when I started going through Twitter and started reading some of the comments that made me say, at least people can be humane at one point in life. And I think everybody was on one accord with that. And that part made it the best, as far as dealing with it. And people actually were praying. I mean, really praying. It wasn't just like, oh, thoughts and prayers. People were literally praying that DeMar would come through. And I'm glad that he's able to be here with us, even though he's not out of the woods yet completely. But he's come so far from where he was last Monday night that it's just a miracle. And I just want to notate too that we talk about him, and I want to put a footprint and just continue to say, leave T. Higgins alone. Please leave T. Higgins alone because that's playing football. There was nothing malicious or intentional about that.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, man, thoughts. Like I said, this is a game. This is a sport. These guys are athletes. They go out there and they compete every Sunday. And which is crazy to me is, guys, we saw a week 18 of guys going out there and competing and doing what they need to do. At the end of the day, man, we talk about this from a fan's perspective. We can all agree, man, that these guys, this is their livelihood. Okay, take the shoulder pads off, take the helmets off. These guys are men, right? They have families, they have kids, they have wives, they have moms and grandmas, and they go out there and they do this, man. So you got this, man, because I'm at the age now. Derek was just joking with me, man. A lot of these guys, man, are like, I'm old enough to be there. Their kids out there playing this game, man. And I don't never want to lose perspective that this is, and I don't want people to lose perspective, human aspect involved in this game. I know a lot of people look at this as a game, and I hear people talk about this, that, and the third. These guys are human beings. They have brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, kids, wives. You know what I'm saying? And we can never lose that. We can never lose that perspective when it comes to this game. You know what I'm saying? We can never do that. So, shout out to everybody that was involved in helping get DeMar to where he is, and just recognizing him and recognizing being humans. And like you said, Derek Cole, man, us praying and coming together under a common note as fans of this game and wanting to see something positive. I go so deep off into that, man, but I think that was something that was on my heart that I wanted to talk about and express. So to move forward here, man, final week Atlanta, we're going to talk about our Atlanta Falcons facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I want to give this over to Banks here in just a second because we had a small text exchange last night. 30-17, our Falcons win final game of the season. They go 7-10 to end out the regular season. 3 at home, which is kind of crazy because we always talk about, you don't want to lose home field. You want to be able to protect the house. And I think this year, give it some credit. I mean, they beat it. They beat a tough team here to beat. They went. They lost 3 games, and I think they win all 3 games that we lost here. But they hung in there, which to some people are going to say meaningless. But I'm gonna give this over to Banks here before we get into the meat of what this means. Banks, you made a comment, so now we all looked, and this was something big for me. I don't know how big it was for y'all, but there was something in my mind, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I did not want Tom Brady to retire. I did not want Tom Brady to retire from the NFL undefeated against the Atlanta Falcons. Today, we gave Tom Brady an L. An L. He is 10-1 against the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to come to you here first, back, because to quote you in the group text when I sent the message, I think I sent a picture or some type of gift to say that Tom Brady was now 10-1 against the Falcons was weak. But with that being said, Tom Brady is still 10-1 against the Atlanta Falcons, something that I was very adamant about. Gave me motivation to actually go into the building to see this game. Banks, I'm going to give it over to you. Why would you make the comment that this is weak? And do you feel like this was?
First of all, I'm going to beat somebody who's been tormenting me for the whole. I want him the whole game. I don't want you to come in first quarter and then you leave and then back up, come in and we beat them. That's not. Because you know what? I don't have no quarrels with Blaine Gabbert. Okay. I want Brady. I want to punish him. I want to beat him. To have responsibility of losing a game for somebody else to take over. I think it's weak because it was just grasping for anything to say we beat him in something. Me, he can still say you still didn't beat me because I didn't finish the game. Finish it. And then when he left the game, it was tied 10-10. So technically he didn't lose it. So I said what I said. It was weak. I didn't look at a thing to get to put anything. I knew he wasn't playing the whole game. So it was a wash for me. They were trying to see what they can do going into next week in the playoffs. And I knew if we would have won against a backup and backups, that everybody would have ran with it. And I'm not doing it. I'm not running with that. That's still
whatever. Don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I respect what you're saying. I respect what you're saying.
I'm just letting you know that.
No, I'm saying I respect what you're saying. But at the end of the day, the stat sheet is gonna still give him that L. He suited up. He started. You take the L. This ain't no a NASCAR rule. You did not finish next to your name. Like Derrico said earlier, we were talking this rules where you pitched a couple of innings and you still don't take. No, in the National Football League, guess what? You put your cleats on, you suit up, you go out there and take a snap, you catch that. So with that being said, whether you strap them on next year or not, guess what? You took the L. I can take that. I can take that with me. I can take that. Derrico, do you feel the same way that I do? Shit.
Oh my goodness, boy, y'all! Wow. Hey, I'm taking that W. Like you know, we had this conversation. The thing that really got me is the fact that this is first ever losing season. That's the most gratifying, and it came at the hands of the Atlanta Falcons. So at least we'll have some good aspect by the name of Tom Brady. When it comes to Tom Brady, that when it all said and done, who made sure that Tom Brady had a losing season? It will say the ATL Falcons, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Dirty birds, man. Them dirty birds, man. Banks, however you want, however you want to see it, man. I know you over there shrugging your shoulder. Whatever it is, what it is. It is what it is. I'm gonna take it, Derrico. Thank you. We're gonna take it. We're going to take that.
Let's play him for 4 quarters, and then you come back and talk to me, okay?
Well, I mean, hey, we might not see him for 4 quarters ever again in life. So you know what? At this juncture, moving forward for the rest of mine, I can say the last L he took in the regular season was against them Birds. So
Bates, let me ask you a quick question, Bates. Why you think he suited up?
They were saying that he suited up so they can get that
because he's
first
a pretentious son of a.
And yeah, that too, Leo. But what I'm saying is they wanted to have some kind of quote unquote.
No, that's a lie. How many times Tom Brady don't have a bye in the playoffs?
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this question: if it was because he wanted to keep the streak going, then why he just didn't play the whole game? If that meant that much.
Because he felt
that much to him. If he felt that Blaine Gabbert was.
Because he felt that we would
can beat him.
the Buccaneers. He felt that this Falcons team was that much beneath the Buccaneers, and he was still going to be able to put a feather in his cap and keep it rolling. Am I right?
That's exactly what he was thinking. You know he's a narcissist.
Well, that same
absolutely.
narcissist is going to say you beat me because I came off the field.
I don't care what he said. I
don't care what he say. I don't care what he say. The record don't lie.
The record don't lie. The record
says that we won the game, but at the end of the day, and when you look, it's gonna be like, oh shit. Well, excuse my French. Tom Brady didn't play.
Take that.
Okay, well, fine.
I mean,
the Tom Brady worshipers use that or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, on the stat column, on the stat sheet, whenever he put that yellow jacket on to go to Canton, the last team that he lost to in the regular season was the Atlanta Falcons. Banks, I'm going to put that in. I'm gonna put the feather there. He laced them up like Derek Cole said. He didn't have to. Brady could have literally said last week, you know what? We in the playoffs. I don't have to lace them up. I ain't got nothing to prove. I want to hear all this. Oh, we need the continuity of the offense to get in the rhythm. Whatever, dude. He came out there, he laced them up, and he played. And before we move forward was, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to move forward. And I know Derek Cole feels the same way that I do. Your ass didn't even on the car. You was already in the locker room. You didn't go out there shake anybody's hand. You felt like, oh, well, whatever. Like you said, Banks, I don't 2 quarters. I'm not shaking nobody's hand. What a piss poor ass sportsman he was. You know what I'm saying? To really literally just walk off when it wasn't even 000 on the clock, man. I mean, who does that, man? I mean, at least. You're right. I didn't expect. You're right.
He's that. He's the dick. He's a dick.
Okay. Well, as long as we know that, as long as we all know that.
You know that. Derek Cole knows that. The world knows that. I mean, it's not a secret. That's something that I expected him to do. That blown me away for him to be on that field shaking anybody on that field's hand. Floored. But the fact that he him to do, what do you say? It's Tom Brady.
Like I said, man. Hey, look. I hope he enjoyed his last game. And it's painful as I'm gonna say this, man, because it's the team he's playing in the playoffs, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. I'm hoping it's a toss up. My brain is conflicted as to what I want to see happen, but I think I've made up my mind who I'm not for
conflicted.
This weekend.
I'm not conflicted.
I know who I'm rooting for. Anyway, moving forward here. Listen, 30-17 Falcons win. Shows us a lot moving forward. I always want to win, fellas. I don't want to go into too deep to talk about what a lot of the fan base wanted to see, man. Because I mean, you know, as us as fans, all of us are rational fans. I agree that, you know what I'm saying, we want to see our team win, right? I mean, I want to see my team win. You know what I'm saying? From a morale, I'm a fan. I want to see W's. Some people in our fan base, oh well, you know. A draft pick, this, that, and the third. Okay, whatever. You're entitled to it. And as a fan, hey, if that's what you want, fine. But we did win 30-17. Now, as we move forward, I think one note that I gotta say before we start talking about a few things, Dean Pease, our defensive coordinator, has now announced that he is retiring. He will no longer be back with the 2023 season. So we will we will be replacing our defensive coordinator moving forward. Now, being said, there's a couple of things I want to talk about before we close this show out, just to talk about our Falcons. First and foremost, Desmond Ridder comes in. First and foremost, undefeated in 2023. Falcons are undefeated in 2023. I think that deserves a round of applause. Whatever. I know y'all going to think of that. And also, first and foremost, Desmond Ridder as a starting quarterback in college or in the NFL, undefeated at home. But let's get into the real deal. Going into this draft, we know now that the Falcons are going to pick in position 8 in the NFL draft coming up here, moving forward in this season. Desmond Ridder, sample size as the starter for the Atlanta Falcons, only 4 games as he goes 2-2 at final stretch, undefeated at home. Cardinals beats the Bucks, loses a tight one against the Ravens, and loses to that other team down in New Orleans. Banks, I'm going to come over to you first. There's a lot of talking Falcons should do first round of the NFL draft. Now, this is a specific question, so I don't want you to go off into any other, we're not going to go into any other universe with this question, but there is a contingency of the fan base. And I know Derico wants me to be specific when I talk about this in my verbiage. There's a contingency, there's a small possible contingency of this fan base that is thinking that at the number 8 pick or somewhere in the first round that we might have to consider possibly drafting another quarterback. We drafted Desmond Ridder last year in the 3rd round. With everything that you've seen moving into this draft coming forward, where do you stand with Desmond Ridder? How do you feel about Desmond Ridder? And do you feel as though the Falcons have to take a deep look at drafting another quarterback in the first round of this draft this year?
It wasn't fair for Desmond Ridder. He only had 4 games to showcase what he can do. I don't think had he played earlier if he would have did any better. But as what I seen those 4, he got better and better and better and better. So take it. As for going to the draft to draft another quarterback, I'm gonna say no. I think this needs to be strictly defense. Just defense. I think a lot of fans back because what quarterbacks are there. You should bring in a veteran. I mean, help Desmond along. I like what I saw from Desmond. It's not fair to him also because he didn't have his weapons. Kyle Pitts wasn't there. You got receivers like Zaki Hodge and Bird and some other Stanley Crane. Oh, I'm just making up names now. Here's some weapons, and let's see what he can. That's why you bring in a veteran to kind of bridge him along. I don't think another rookie is going to help anything. I think people want another rookie just to they sell tickets, to be in the.
Let me ask you this, Banks, before I go over to Derico. There's some people that I spoke with this morning, some text morning as to feel as though, yeah, we saw that Ridder was decent, but as a ceiling, where do you see them at? Because a lot of people feel like, there isn't a Herbert, Mahomes, Allen ceiling, and they feel like, this game isn't it. They don't get that feeling. They don't get those butterflies when they watch Desmond Ridder play. What do you say to those fans that only saw 4 games from Desmond Ridder about his ceiling and where they think he could possibly be?
So my question is, Josh Allen's, those Mahomes, those Herbert feelings with no talent on the roster to see it. Herbert here as a rookie, do you think he would wonders what he's doing now with the roster day? Without a Kyle Pitts, with a I forgot the guy's first name. These are the guys that you're throwing the ball to. It's not fair to say he's not it. You don't know if he is it. You got Herbert, who came into a good situation as a rookie. Mahomes came into a good situation with a good head coach, by the way. That's not fair to Desmond Ridder. It's not it. I don't know what you think for him to do. You're not going to come and play your first game and be lighting the yard up. You're just not doing that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Derico, I'm going to pass it over to you here, man, just to piggyback on that. Desmond Ridder, your first takes on him. 4-4 as 2 as he starts. Why y'all looking at me like that? Banks looking at me like he want to fight.
I'm trying to figure out what you got in that cup.
I don't have nothing in that cup. Listen, Desmond Ridder, man, how do you feel about him? Just to piggyback on what we're talking about with him starting. Moving forward, how do you feel draft wise, and what do you see him in long term as a Falcons quarterback?
No, we don't need to draft another quarterback. That's just a given. We don't need to draft another quarterback. Like Banks said, what is another rookie going to do for a 2-year NFL quarterback? Nothing. You got to bring in a veteran that preferably comes from a winning pedigree. Preferably. Hopefully. preferably that it's somebody that has won something. I don't care if it's a division championship, something that he's won, that he can instill some type of winning attitude of the NFL. Ritter, I like what I've seen out of Ritter. I've seen poise. I've seen some nice throws, good NFL throws. He does not panic, which is good. And I want to give him the opportunity to continue to lead the Atlanta Falcons as a whole. And no, I don't want us to go after a quarterback up north because that's going to put us back in another situation that we just left. So everybody that thinks that, think about that. You just bitched about our cap situation with another quarterback. So don't come at me with you want to pay another quarterback more than you paid that quarterback. And that's going to be my little TED talk for today.
Absolutely. I think Desmond Ritter, man, like you said, man, to piggyback with you guys, man, I think he did an absolute great job coming in. Considering the circumstances, not to go too far deep off into it, man. He came in, he showed poise. He was able to win some games. He was able to make some throws. You know, to me, to be completely honest, I think he actually looked more NFL ready than I. I mean, he was very, very poised, the composure was there. Of course, mistakes are going to happen, man. 10, 12-year veterans make mistakes. But he looked very, very cool. He looked very, very collected. He looks like he's already commanding the leadership abilities are there. I think I heard that, you know, a lot of people are looking at him. I've seen that the team has responded very, very well to him reading some articles, man. So I feel good about Desmond Ritter. So to just all the naysayers that think we need to draft because, you know, quarterbacks out there that look really, really good. No, we don't need to draft another quarterback. I think let's see where we go with Desmond Ritter. And absolutely, Derek O, I want to see a veteran come in. I want to see somebody that can actually challenge and push and Desmond Ritter can learn from. I think let's let this ultimately it's going to be up to the team as to what they're going to do moving forward. But I think that there was enough to see with him. Let's see where this takes us and let's see what this goes. At the value we got him for, I think that you can say, hey, we have enough and we're able to come to do this season and be very competitive next year. Going back to our preseason predictions, and I'm going to bring this up quickly before we close this out. Banks about us not doing very, very well. I think the preseason prediction was two games. Banks couldn't see it, but ultimately we did end up. When I said we would go above the 5-game mark, we won 7 games. And credit that to Arthur Smith. So I'm gonna go and something else I want to talk about. There are some people this morning on social media. Arthur Smith should be on the hot seat. Listen, credit 7 games, and I think we can all agree winning 7 games was a lot important. He didn't really have a lot, and he came out, man, and we were able to win 7 games. You know, whether it was Mariota or Desmond Ritter, man, getting these guys to play at a competitive level against some tough teams all the way down the stretch. It was only a couple of games that we weren't in it, but it's a slim margin of this team actually being 10-7 and 7-10. Realistically, you know, I don't care what you want to say. I call it, man. There's a slim margin of this team being either 10-7 and winning this division and hosting a home playoff game of being 7-10. So I credit Arthur Smith. I'm so excited to see now this is going to be the first season, I think, that collectively Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith can actually say, hey, look, we have some room. We have some free agents that we can actually say, hey, we want to bring in here to help our. Saw some people this year that we signed to some show me deals that we can stick with long term. And I think moving forward, you know, we got a lot to build on, me personally. Now, some will disagree, but I say, hey, man, we're on the uptick. And I think that we're going to show moving forward that this is something we're going to build on and continue to get better as we move on. As we close this thing out, Banks, I'm going to present this to you. Do you think we're on the uptick now? 5 years removed from the playoffs, moving into this new season coming up in 2023, are we on the uptick, and can you see finally some positivity moving forward with this team?
Well, absolutely. Finally, I can see that we're out of that cap hell. It's kind of like the sky's the limit at this point. I mean, we got so much wiggle room in the draft, and so a clean canvas. You can paint whatever you want to paint now. It's like the guys that Arthur Smith had this year here was, it was on paper, looking at it with the naked eye, you're like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. And what he did was a miracle. A guy told me at work that he should be on the hot seat. Looking at a different perspective of what Arthur Smith bake a cake with just eggs. You got to have the whole ingredient cake. And the only thing that Arthur Smith had, he had his hands tied, like literally tied. Anything he had to bring in that had to learn on the fly, almost in a sense. And he had a running back at the time when he first got here. He didn't know really the situation, and then now we got, I dare say, we got
a number one receiver.
I dare say, we have a tight end. I mean, we have a quarterback. A clean slate now, guys. Now let's see what we do with it. With all the money we about to receive, with the draft capital we about to receive, let's see what we can build now.
Derek, I pass it to you before we on a positive note, man. Do you see us ascending now, moving forward, man, as being a competitive team, 5 years removed from the playoffs, finally able to say, hey, you know what? We can see some light at the end of the tunnel.
I think you prefaced already that during this season, there's 2 games that we probably wasn't competitive in. I'm only thinking about Cincinnati, so you got to help me with the second one. But Cincinnati, we just got drugged. So we lost majority of those games by less than 1 score. And we know we watched this team be non-competitive the last 4 years. So yes, the uptick is there. I think having a cultural change mentally that, hey, we're not the same organization, the same football team. So let's go out here and compete. That's probably the most proud thing I was about this squad this year, and the job that Arthur Smith did, is that we competed our asses off. That's the same mentality that dude in Detroit brought to Detroit. Even though we all laughed at him, but he brought a different mentality to that organization. And I say the same thing that Arthur Smith is doing. The only thing I don't like about Arthur Smith is I want him to give up the play calling, and just be the head coach. I want him to get an offensive coordinator. I do. Other than that, I have absolutely no qualms with the job that he's done for our football team.
Absolutely. Brother Fresh, and I think that this is, the first real head coach, no nonsense. To your credit, Derek, yeah, maybe, Coach Ragone obviously is supposed to be the offensive coordinator. But yeah, Arthur Smith that still call the plays, and maybe his judgment when it comes to certain management issues on the field might be a little clouded. But we'll see moving forward how this works out, man. I look forward to Arthur Smith being here for quite some time, and I'm very, very optimistic about what Terry Fontenot can do here moving forward as well. So I think, no matter what a lot of people say, these are all opinions of fans. I feel as though I'm very, very optimistic with Arthur Smith being here for quite some time. I'm very, very optimistic in our quarterback, Desmond Ridder. And yes, I'm proud to call Desmond Ridder the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. I think the young man has proven himself as an NFL caliber quarterback. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this new season is going to entail. I look forward to getting back on the road. Couple of close home road games, fellas, this year. So I think some road trips are coming up. We got 3. We got 2 right down the road. I know you love Jacksonville. I know you love Duval. And Derrick, I know you love Nashville, man. So 2 road trips that we got coming up. What's the third one, Derrick, that we got within?
I mean, you got to put Carolina in there. Carolina.
Oh, we always got Carolina.
Yeah, Nashville.
Carolina
Nashville.
and Tampa, obviously. But definitely, you know what I'm saying? It's always cool to play a non-division rival so close within 4 to 5 hour proximity, especially with the way Jacksonville has been playing. Jacksonville just got a playoff berth this next year. That'll be it should be a highly competitive game going down there to see Trevor Lawrence. So I'm excited. I think I want to mark that on my calendar, fellas. So go ahead. Looking at possibly going down to Jacksonville for the weekend and checking that out, and also maybe going up to Tennessee and checking that out as well. So I'm very optimistic. So listen, guys, we've come. Our NFL season is over tonight. College football season will come to an end and conclude, and hopefully we will be victorious. I'm gonna go ahead and claim it. UGA, let's go out there and compete and let's do what we do. So the next up on board for us to talk about here at 3, we'll go over there and see what the boys over at State Farm Arena are doing. I know it's been a long time overdue for us to talk about them, and also hear a brand new soccer season as we look forward to the kickoff with Atlanta United as they play a friendly here in just a moment, and us trying to figure out who's actually going to be the starting 11 for these guys, because I don't know any on this roster right now. But we'll talk about this on the next Leo G show, man. As we close this out, Banks, I'm gonna pass it over to you. Let everybody know where they can find me.
You can find me on Antoine Jarrell Banks on Facebook, 80 on the gram or Twitter. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm not on Snap, on no TikTok or any other extra ones that they got out there now.
All right, Derrick, let everybody know where they can find you at, brother.
And you can find me on Facebook at Stacy D Derrico. You can hit me on IG at Derrico_Virgo. You can catch me on the Twitter at VSU96SDD. And you can catch me on Snap at DJ K-Rose6.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, you can always catch the Leo G show at the Leo G show, the #1 on Twitter. I'm not gonna lie, I have been very, very slacking on first. I need to get back on it, man. So 2023, we're gonna work very, very hard to getting that back up and running. You can also catch me Southern Set with 2 T's. That's my own personal Twitter account. You can catch me there. You can also catch our Facebook page, the Leo G show. Guys, I look forward to 2023, man. It's a lot of positivity, man, as we watch the Ohio State kicker go wide left, bringing in a new year. I can say that everything is kind of looking for our teams, and I'm going to claim that for 2023. And I'm hoping that we're going to see and have good vibes and good things as we move on with our fandom in 2023, man. So the first show 2023 is a wrap. We thank everybody for the support. That watched us live on Facebook and on YouTube, man. It's been another edition of the Leo G show, and we about to be out. In the words of my man Prime, theme music.